Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome back into Gamecock Central. My name is Kendall Smith, joined alongside of Wes Mitchell, back here to finally talk about some South Carolina football. I feel like it has been so long, Wes, but at the same time, I feel like the offseason went by just like that. South Carolina about to kick off their spring practice schedule on March 14th. That's just 2 weeks away now because it's March 1st. So time going by fast, but also we've spent a lot of time talking about basketball, baseball, not a ton of football, at least from my end. I know your end, you've been doing a lot, but on my end, not a ton of football. So it's great to be back here talking with you. And I don't know, you think the time went by fast, Wes? Because it's hard to believe spring practice is here.
Yeah, well, I do think it's going pretty fast, and you and I haven't done one of these videos in a long time. One of us stood the other one up last week. We won't tell the people
Take a
which
guess,
one.
everybody, as to who stood who up. I just want to know what the people think. It's
Yeah, so but yeah, it's been a while, Kendall, and I mean, at the same time, I feel like the bowl game was like 2 weeks ago. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago, and the seasons fly by, and then next thing you know, you're Shane Beamer, and you've got a bunch of new transfers coming in. You've got a bunch of new freshmen, lots of new faces, and now you start this process over. We've talked in the past about how close knit these teams have been. We've talked about the culture building. Some of that stuff, Kendall, has to start over because you're talking about brand new people in your building.
Well, Wes, it's interesting because I think with this team, there are a lot of questions that people want answered. And that happens every year. And of course, South Carolina won't get all of those questions answered until they actually go out this fall and they take on North Carolina in their first game of the year on September 2nd in Charlotte. But for spring practice, there is an opportunity to kind of see what you've got. And things are going to change after spring practice, too, because there is another transfer portal period that will open up after spring practice. But I think something that we need to address to start things off today are your main areas of concern for this South Carolina team as we head into spring practice. What position groups, what aspects of the game do they need to focus on most this spring so that they can make the most of it as they head into the season?
Yeah, I think you can put them in two broad categories. Like you may say there are question marks, but the coaches at some spots probably feel pretty good about the players who are going to be stepping in. They lost to Cam Smith, they lost to Darius Rush. So that's sort of a question in a big picture standpoint. But you look at the way Marcel Style finished the year last year. O'Donnell Fortune had a good finish to the year last year. So you probably put that in the category of, all right, there it is a question, but you feel pretty good about what the answer is going to be. The two biggest concerns, I think, right now are probably at the edge position and then honestly at the running back position. I mean, you look at edge, the loss of Gilbert Edmond, the loss of Jordan Birch, the fact they were not able to go get Trajan Jeffcoat out of the transfer portal. That's a position where, they feel good about Jordan Strong, but opposite of him, they're going to want to take a look at a lot of guys in the spring at running back. Marshawn Lloyd is gone, obviously. Jaheim Bell, who played a lot of running back last year, is gone. Rashad Amos is gone. So, I think they look at that position. Juju McDowell was back. They added a transfer in Mario Anderson. They're going to get a long look at Mario Anderson in the spring, I think, and try to get an idea. Is this someone who's just going to kind of help? Is this a potential lead back, like top guy, or somewhere in between? And so I think you're going to want to answer those questions on the field. But those are the two positions that I think are most likely that they go out and get some transfer portal help during that next window as well.
And Mario Anderson has received a ton of praise throughout this offseason. A lot of people very high on him and what he could do for South Carolina. And it's good for a guy like him because he's coming into an offense where you have two very seasoned players that are coming back for a second year together, the dynamic duo of Spencer Rattler and Juice Wells. So good for the newer players to have that kind of established group that's already in there with the offense, and also good for Dowell Loggins because he's coming in his first year as South Carolina's offensive coordinator. And that's obviously a huge question mark for a lot of fans, not necessarily questioning what he can do, but questioning what he will do, Wes. So what do you think this offense for South Carolina will look like this year potentially?
Yeah, I think we're still trying to put all the pieces together. Dow Loggins talked about it when he got hired. Shane Beamer talked about it when he hired Dow Loggins. We've had Spencer Rattler talk to us about it. We've had Luke Doty talk to us about it on Garnet Trust interviews. And the big takeaway is that they want to do a lot of what they did last year. Very pro style scheme, similar concepts, and they want to just streamline it. They want it to be a little bit more, I would say, college oriented in terms of maybe not huddling so much, maybe not so many different packages and long play calls, and just letting the guys feel comfortable going and playing. I thought that was kind of what they did late last season. We saw them beat Tennessee, obviously, beat Clemson, obviously. It looked like a completely different offense in terms of how successful it was late down the stretch. So I don't think, Kendall, that you want to completely reinvent the wheel from what they did down the stretch. However, with any new coach, there's going to be some new ways to do things, some new terminology for things, some new different play calls. But from everything I've heard, Dow Loggins has fit in extremely well just on a personal level, like just being a fit with the players and coaches. And they're kind of now getting to that point where they're starting to implement the actual playbook as well. So I don't know how much of spring we're going to get to see in person. Obviously, the spring game, that'll give us a little insight. For the most part, we'll probably all have to wait until the fall. But spring will be our first little glimpse of exactly what this offense is going to look like.
We all have that hope that in the spring you'll find out maybe a little bit more than you were expecting. And you mentioned it there, the spring game happening on April 15th at 7 p.m. So another night game at Williams-Brice Stadium for the spring game. It's going to be a fun one for sure. I wasn't there last year, Wes, but you were there. What'd you think of that nighttime atmosphere with the fireworks and the big Gamecock weekend that they're putting on again this year?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I think, Kendall, you got to do everything you can to try and make your spring game weekend a little bit different. You got to make it exciting for the fans. They had a Patrick Davis concert as well. I wonder where they got that idea from. Fireworks. It was
The
cool.
5K, the fun
Yeah,
run.
the
I
5K.
better see you up at 8 a.m. running that 5K, Wes. That's all
Well,
I
let me just put it out there, Kendall, to everyone. I've according to sources, you have signed up for the 5K, so I'm looking forward to hearing what
I mean, I would
your
do it.
time is.
We got to get a Gamecock Central running team going, and I'll do it.
Okay, if you sign up, I will sign up as well.
I'm
So
down.
we'll see everybody at the 5K. You heard it right here. It's
Bright and
locked
early.
in forever, and yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I think there need to be more food trucks out there. Maybe some beer stands, like anything to make it more like a party. I think is a good thing for everybody, and the better atmosphere you can create, the more recruits are going to like it as well.
Yeah, and this game is going to be a chance for these Gamecock fans to see some of these new faces for the very first time at Williams-Brice Stadium. So, Wes, last question for you. Who are some of those newcomers that you're really excited to see throughout spring practice this year?
There's a lot of them. We talked about Mario Anderson, so we won't go into him again. I think all the tight ends, any of the transfers, you're very curious to see how quickly can they just start grabbing starting spots. I look at Trey Knox, someone who I think will come in and probably be a starter this year. Just curious to see what his skill set looks like. But freshman wise, I'll say one on each side of the ball. I think everybody's excited to see Pup Howard, and former 4-star linebacker, great personality, is going to potentially be a face of this program type player as his time at South Carolina sort of progresses. So I'm just curious to see how far along is he. Like, I know he's going to be a good player. I want to see how far along is he. On the other side, not even a guy that's going to have to play this year, you would think, but I'm really excited to see Lenoris Sellers, quarterback, in-state guy, late commitment for South Carolina. But, man, this guy had such a good senior year. And then early indications have been very positive for Lenoris Sellers. No surprise there. But I'm ready to see this guy in a college offense and sort of how quickly has he come along. I got a feeling that he's got a bright, bright future at South Carolina.
You heard it here first from Wes Mitchell. He has been a Lenoris Sellers fan since day one. Wes, I will always say that the day that Lenoris goes out there and he shows what he's got and he becomes a Gamecock great, we're always going to remember that you were one of the first people to say it on here.
And I'll say this, our guy, Charles Power, who is one of our guests on GC Live, from On Three that does the rankings. Some of that it was me sort of piggybacking off him because he, for the longest time, like he would text me like, "Hey, did you see what Lenoris did? Did you see what Lenoris did?" So I will. I would certainly take any credit I can get, but also I'm going to share that with Charles because Charles has been high on this guy for a long time, and I think Gamecock fans are starting to already kind of get there as well. Once he committed and they really looked into what he did as a senior. So Kendall, he's got a late birthday. So he's younger
Yep.
than most. He's the same age as some 2024s. And so Charles actually said, because he literally does the rankings for On Three, he said that Lenoris would have been in the conversation to be the top quarterback in the country for 2024 if he had another year of high school ball left. And you were sitting there saying, wow, he did all this as a junior. He's got one more year. So that just gives everybody a little idea of just how big his upside is.
Well, it is definitely going to be an exciting spring for South Carolina football. They have just continued with the energy, continued with the engagement of the fans, and you can just tell everybody is ready to get back out there at Williams-Brice Stadium April 15th, that spring game at 7 p.m. But South Carolina kicking off their spring practices just 2 weeks from now on March 14th. We'll keep you covered over on GamecockCentral.com and on all of our social medias at Gamecock Central. Wes, appreciate all of your insight as always. Appreciate all of you for watching this video, and we will be back with more soon. He's Wes Mitchell. I'm Kendall Smith. Thanks for joining us here today on Gamecock Central.